Joining us now is retired U.S. Marine Corps General Arnold Punaro as we look at the military options one day before the deadline for U.S. troops to leave Afghanistan. General Panaro, a former staff director of the Senate Armed Services Committee and has a long resume in the armed forces, chairman of the National Defense Industrial Association, author as well of the new book, The Ever-Shrinking Light Force. General, it's great to have you here. You carried a rifle in Vietnam and continued to fight in combat, in deployment in Iraq. And I wonder if you could give us a sense of the military hardware that we are leaving behind. It seems to be one of the lesser reported stories here. Hundreds of trucks, night vision goggles, tanks, aircraft that the Taliban apparently does not know how to fly but could sell. What kind of a risk are we creating by leaving all that on the ground?
Well, it's unfortunate that the way what I call a retreat, not a retrograde, is occurring. We didn't have the opportunity to get all this equipment out. I mean, this is one of the problems with the whole way the thing is being done. So not only, sadly, are we not going to get all the Americans and all the Afghans that supported us out, we're also leaving behind a lot of very expensive, very capable equipment. I personally don't have an inventory. Some of it we shouldn't worry that much about, trucks and things like that, but there is some sophisticated equipment that could get into the wrong hands. We also know that we're going to leave a opening for terrorist organizations to move back into Afghanistan, and this is equipment that they could get and use, not just in the United States, but also some of their close by neighbors.
Well, I'd like to ask you about that. The idea, General, some of this equipment could be used against us. We've been hearing a lot about over-the-horizon missions and over-the-horizon posture in which we would be working against terrorism from outside of the country, right, from drones or aircraft and elsewhere. Is that a reasonable mission for us to get our heads around here? Will that be effective after the U.S. military leaves Kabul?
So there are two things, Joe. One, I don't think any of the equipment we're leaving behind will give terrorist organizations to target us from Afghanistan. So whatever over-the-horizon capability or limited range some of that equipment has, it's going to be more vis-a-vis Pakistan or China or India, some of their neighbors. Now, in terms of the U.S. being able to basically do over-the-horizon capabilities, if we were to see Al-Qaeda or ISIS-K really begin, or other terrorist organizations really begin to build up in Afghanistan or in the federal administered tribal areas of Pakistan, we have some over-the-horizon capabilities that could be used, like the drone strike we did the other day. But as former Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta said, if we see those buildups occurring, we're probably going to have to go back in there. And as someone that has been in combat a number of times, frankly, in situations like this, while the high technology is important, you find out to really eradicate it, you have to have boots on the ground. So it will be a combination of over the horizon, but if the threat is that large, we are going to end up having to send people back in to take them out.
General, how reliable is Pakistani intelligence for the United States, especially given the fraught relationship? Since the president has been inaugurated, he's yet even to call Imran Khan. How do you see that relationship playing out now?
Well, you know, Anne-Marie, that's a terrific question. And let me give you a little bit of history, because as the staff director of the Armed Services Committee with then Chairman Senator Sam Nunn, President Bush asked us to go to Pakistan and meet with the head of Pakistan, Zia-ul-Haq, to talk about whether or not we should give the Mujahideen, who were fighting to push the Soviets out of Afghanistan, Stingers, which were very capable against the Soviet helicopters, which was the way they moved in Afghanistan. And the decision was made, and Pakistan was supporting us at that time. The Mujahideen were actually the Taliban. So the Taliban was allied with the U.S. then in pushing the Soviets out, and the Stingers worked well. That relationship has deteriorated over the years, and Pakistan has protected the terrorists. They've supported the Taliban. And while Pakistan is important, they're not sharing any useful intelligence with us about terrorist organizations because they're supporting them. And they're protecting them in the federal administered tribal areas. So I don't think we can trust Pakistan at all.
It's 9:16 p.m. Kabul time, General. What does, given your experience in the military, in Vietnam, in Iraq, what does the final hours of a withdrawal look like? How many troops do you assess have probably left? What exactly is happening at that airport as the U.S. says goodbye?
Well, would say, even though the forward planning left a lot to be desired, I think the backward planning, our military is on top of that. They know who's going to be manifested on every single flight till the last flight goes out. My instinct tells me the senior officials and whatever senior diplomats are going to go out will go out on the last flight. Obviously, I don't have the numbers, and they're not sharing those numbers, and they're not sharing the time frame. But I'm very confident our military has the final day mapped out very carefully. But again, I think we have to understand we're not getting all the Americans out. We're not getting all the Afghans that supported us out. I personally think the first thing President Biden ought to do right now is send a finding up to the intelligence committees, establishing a covert program run by the CIA, supported by our special operators under Title 50, so we can continue to get Americans and Afghans out, whether the Taliban cooperate or not. I mean, we were depending at the airport on our sworn enemy, the Taliban. And no matter what anybody says on the shows, the administration spokesman, as soon as they take over, they're going to take that country back to the Stone Age. So we're in a very, very bad situation. And they certainly, I don't think, are going to cooperate once we're gone. So we're going to need a covert program to get our people out.
General, what does that mean also for the former Afghan National Army members, if that's what I'm supposed to call them, who are left in Panjshir province? I've heard that there are thousands, as many as 10,000 of them still there, anti-Taliban, a stronghold that is, in fact, continuing the mission that we had trained them to do. I know that that's a tough area for the Taliban in general, but should we be helping them? Should there be CIA operatives helping what's left of the Afghan National Army that was fighting on behalf of the U.S.?
I certainly would think we should help anybody that's willing to take on the Taliban and anybody that's willing to take on the terrorist organizations that are going to grow back. One of the big mistakes we made, which was the same mistake we made in Vietnam, instead of Vietnamizing the war and we Americanized it, we taught the South Vietnamese with our equipment and how to fight like us. We did the same thing in Afghanistan. Once we left Vietnam in '73, you know, their army collapsed. Now that we're leaving Afghanistan, because we gave them our equipment that they can't operate without us, we trained them to fight like us. The Taliban fights guerrilla war. They don't fight conventional war. So I think, yes, we should help anybody that's left that's willing to risk their lives to take on this terrorist organization that's going to basically, again, take that country back to the Stone Age.